Hi, I'm your host, Larry Dasilva. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Studio 411. It's always nice when we have guests return to pay us a visit. In this case, we have a young lady who's been here several times, always via the magic of Skype, FaceTime, or satellite. Melanie Young, author, radio host, joining us today. So instead of being in New York City or instead of being in Tennessee, we actually have Melanie here. We've actually dragged her in to be here in our studio with us. Her book in its second edition, Getting Things Off My Chest, A Survivor's Guide to Staying Fearless and Fabulous in the Face of Breast Cancer. It's an International Book Award winner as well as a U.S. Best Book Award winner, as I said, in its second printing. Ms. Melanie, thank you for gracing our stage today.
Well, it's finally good to see you in person, Larry.
I know, it's such a difference. I feel like I know you, yet it's always like these video love letters, and it's like, well, now we're face to face, and I know on her end she's probably scared to death, but she's looking very well, and your health is doing well, I assume?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Very good. We have so much to talk about with Melanie. Of course, Melanie, a longtime wine and food industry professional before she had her battle with breast cancer, and now is not only a major advocate for it. Again, she's written 2 books. And again, hosts a couple of radio shows. One that I want to mention, she does with her husband, David Ransom, is a show, The Connected Table Live, which airs on WRCY Radio and is on Wednesday afternoons at 2 p.m., and as well as her own show. And tell us a little bit. Now, that is what, Fearless, Fabulous You, right? That's
right, Larry. Fearless, Fabulous You airs Mondays, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Women for Women Network. So those call letters are W4, the number 4, WN, and then it's permanently podcast to iHeart.com and free iHeart app.
So that's a good exposure there.
It's great,
sure.
and it's the name of my second book, Fearless, Fabulous You, Lessons on Living Life on Your Terms, and my audience is women. I interview inspiring women and experts on health and wellness.
Although you would agree that obviously cancer is not gender specific, so hopefully some males tuning in today will learn a little bit about not only themselves, perhaps, God forbid they're in that situation, but also some of the other topics we're talking about, or they know someone in their family that is either going through cancer or some of the other topics we're going to talk about, both from a health and wellness standpoint. And this for you has got to be just a twists and turns, but certainly what you're doing from an advocacy standpoint, it's got to be very fulfilling for you.
Well, it is, Larry. I didn't expect to become a health advocate. I fell into it because I got sick and I wanted to be healthy. And then once I learned the road to health, I wanted to share it with others.
Absolutely.
Men and women, women and men.
You mentioned before we went on the air that now you are focusing on another book that we certainly will have you on with us in the future about unlocking mental blocks to open up. We'll get back to that. Let's talk about healthy cancer survivorship,
yes.
What that means and how you can reduce your risk through diet, exercise, managing stress, and also mindfulness.
Well, a book I am working on is going to be about being a fearless, fabulous cancer survivor. It's a book I really couldn't write until I had gone through it myself. I'm now at 8 years since diagnosis, and I learned that after 5 years, you're kind of on your own. It's the survivorship and you're your own captain.
Right.
And what I learned for any cancer survivor, or anyone who has had a self-back, and just about anybody, period, you need to do the following. You need to think about eating better food. It's not about taking out, it's about adding in. You need to exercise regularly, different kinds of exercise, not the same thing every day. You need to get sleep. You need to reduce your stress. And you need to find a creative, meditative outlet that brings you joy.
Now, lack of sleep, for one, I think we all can relate to that. That's
Yeah.
always in the news for, they say 6 hours. I'm lucky I get about 6.5 during a work week, but yeah. She looks at me and aghast. Yeah. But again, it's difficult, and there are many people, and I'm always a big believer that, and I've said this for years, people, God help them, that word third shift. They're just shaving months and years off their lives, and unfortunately, the world revolves 24/7. But
well, that's actually true. There's actually been studies done that the risk for breast cancer is somewhat higher for those who work the night shift.
And now tell me too about now making switches in your diet again. And you say you can do it without sacrificing flavor or flair.
Right. I really disparage any diets that are about reduction and doing without, because eating is a healthy part of our life. We nourish ourselves through food, and it's got to taste good and it's got to be good for you. So it's really about adding in more fresh vegetables and fruits, lean proteins, healthy oils, complex carbs and whole grains, and of course lots of good hydration like water, or I'm a big fan, less of juice and more flavored waters, flavored with herbs and cucumbers and fruits, and of course you can have a daily glass of wine.
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit, because I know that keeps coming up in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, you told us in your past visits here, you obviously used to live in the city.
Yes.
Not a native New Yorker, originally from Tennessee, correct?
Right.
And then
Chattanooga.
Right, but you've been in New York so long that really it's ingrained in you at this point.
Yeah.
And then when you went through your initial illness, you made the decision, as we've talked about, to move more to a more rural situation. Now, in that situation in the rural New York, I take it you probably frequent farmers markets and really get out there and sample some of the fresh homegrown cuisine or farm-grown cuisine, as opposed to stuff always off the supermarket shelves.
Well, actually, I live near the Union Square Farmers Market in New York City, so I was always going to farmers markets and always eating great food because I dined out in New York City so much. The difference is we cook at home. I never cooked. I actually still don't. My husband David does, but we buy.
It's nice that you give him props since he's listening. Real. It's nice that you give him props.
But we eat at home more, and this is as much as. And listen, I love to eat out. I love restaurants, but eating in and having simple home-cooked meals, usually a lean protein and fresh vegetables, again, sourced at a local farmer's market, but sometimes the supermarkets, which has really good vegetables too, has helped us keep our weight down. Because we're not out, a lot of times restaurant food is very high in salt or sugar. We can monitor that ourselves. So that's really the difference, is that we're eating home more and having home-cooked meals. And studies have shown that is an important aspect of health. Well,
that's what I was going to get to. And you've mentioned now and in the past about eating out a lot. Granted, the cuisine may be good, but again, because you are not in from minute one in the preparation, it might be higher in sodium content. It might have more fatty acids, or what kind of oils, what kind of this and that are they using. This way, you and David are controlling, what's going into your diet. So that's great.
And when we do eat out, I'm now the first to study the restaurant menu on the website to really start planning what I'm going to eat. And when we go to wine events, I'm the one who calls ahead and says, let's talk about the menu, just to make sure there's healthy options.
Sure. Author, radio host Melanie Young joining us for the hour here on Studio 411, the second edition of Getting Things Off My Chest, a survivor's guide to staying fearless and fabulous in the face of breast cancer. Now, to go back to you were talking about the new project you're focusing on, a future project, about unlocking mental blocks to open up your life. Many people have mental blocks and cannot find their way out to pursue their passions and purposes. I think myself sometimes, I think we all have mental blocks. Mine tends to be almost kind of a procrastination at times, brought on either by an anxiety or a uneasiness about whether something is going to work fine or not, like this show. But, so I mean, I think those are mine. I mean, tell me a little bit about, this topic. Again, I know you've got some observations on that.
I do, and I'm working on the keys to unlocking those mental blocks, because we are our own worst enemy when it comes to getting in our own ways, right?
Sure.
I'll give you a few examples. One I call cantorexia, like anorexia, but it's cantorexia. I can't do it. I can't do it. Just you're filled with can'ts. You can't do it. People tell you can't. Sure you can. You can put your mind to it. Influenza. If only I could do it. What if I make a mistake? It's that putting that if in front of everything that stops you, right? Another one, they're all tied to diseases. Crohn's disease. I'm too old. I'm too old. I'm a crone. I'm just too old. We need to realize that you can put your mind to do something if you have a positive attitude. Attitude is actually even more important than aptitude. You can learn something, but if you have the wrong attitude, all the skills in the world won't get you anywhere.
Right. And I find that in the last 10, 15 years, I mean, it seems like busier with every year of my life, that busier than ever. More projects. Obviously, you have to be maybe more skilled or adept at kind of where your focus is going to be and what you're going to kind of maybe put on the back burner.
Right.
But I find that I meet people that, whether they're younger than I, same age, older, that just seem to be like there's no inertia going on there. They're just stagnant. They're just kind of living day to day, kind of in a holding pattern.
Well, it's interesting, Larry. It's like the more you do and the more you expand, it's like amoeba brain. The more you expand, the less you actually accomplish, because you lose your focus. So sometimes it's a matter of paring down and doing less. Downsizing is not downgrading your life. It can upgrade your life because you're more focused and you have less clutter. We have a lot of mental clutter going on. We have a lot of clutter in our lives, period.
Yeah, physical clutter.
Physical and mental clutter, right?
But now, the physical, again, there's different things you can do there. But as far as the mental, it's just, what else can you do to kind of, put that in a positive way, positive direction?
Well, I think there are many things to do. First of all, clear your space. Clear the space in your head, clear your space around you to declutter. So do less. Limit your to-do list. I used to wake up with a 20, a to-do list so long, I was never going to get through it. Now I only really say, what 5 things can I do today? And if I do 3 of them, I'm pretty happy.
Exactly,
so limit your to-do list. It's so important. Also, reframe everything. If something bad happens, reframe it to the good. It's raining. I don't like the rain. But then we're not going to have, the flowers will grow.
Right.
Right? So a lot of it's just doing a healthy reframe.
You don't want to look like this guy.
A lot of people feel like this guy, really. That's locked-in syndrome.
Yeah, exactly.
Another condition.
Exactly. I agree totally with you as far as, usually I say out of 10 things, if I can do 2 or 3 well, the key is, and this is what I'm always trying to work on, I know we have technology that will help us do this, but I'll have a notebook and I'll say, okay, these are the 20 things that have to get done or whatever. Unfortunately, I lose the notebook, so I've got to work on that.
Yeah, that's the scatterbrain effect.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to know where everything is.
Exactly.
And like me, I have too many notebooks. Yeah. Yesterday, I was looking for a notebook with a list of wines. I couldn't find it. I had 6 notebooks in front of me and I couldn't find anything. So it's like buy less, have less. That's really where it starts.
I'll give you an example. So many folks with very beautiful homes, especially even down south. I don't know why I'm reminded of kind of Gone with the Wind-like thing. But folks that would have these wonderful, sitting rooms, living rooms, and they still have them today, Lord knows, here in Connecticut, where they have the, walls of books, antique books, classic books. My era, it's more like LP, CDs, that kind of stuff. You find today's generation, maybe it's for the good, is they don't have that kind of, maybe what other people would call clutter. So, I mean, is that something that you think you will see less of, people having physical objects, or will they make up for it in other ways?
Oh, I think they'll make up for other ways. I think
they'll have six phones instead of one.
Yeah, I think they'll just have more gadgets. I mean,
exactly.
You know, everybody has something that they get too much of. I mean, we're an acquisitive society. We're more acquisitive than inquisitive sometimes.
Sometimes we need to, as I was saying to a recent guest, we need to lift our head up and watch what's going on around us instead of in our phone.
Well, I do think that the younger generation, from what I understand, they're very experiential. They like to collect experiences. So they acquire memories more than things. I think that's from all the umpteen studies I'm reading. So that's a good thing.
Melanie Young joining us for the hour here on Studio 411, Getting Things Off My Chest, a Survivor's Guide in its second edition. Let's move on to our next topic for the hour, tackling ageism. Quite a bit, Melanie has been focusing on that and what it takes to stay fresh and relevant. I found this, I thought this might help you, but take it away. Tell me about...
Wow, this is a great graph.
Yes, I'm
impressed.
I didn't draw it myself.
Well, ageism is, you know, letting age be a mental block. Like I said, Crohn's disease, I'm too old or you're too young. It's so funny. You can spend so much of your life being too young and then one day you're too old, right? Go figure. You spend, like, I'm trying to look young. I'm trying to look older when I'm a teen, and now I'm trying to look younger now that I'm a certain age. But these are really great points because there's personal ageism, you know, bias against persons or groups based on their older age. That happens sadly a lot, where people are treated differently because they're older. It's very sad, and we are all getting older, everybody. It's inevitable. So treat the elderly with respect because you're going to be there one day. Institutional ageism, missions and rules and practices that discriminate against individuals or groups because of their age. That's a lot in corporation. It's against the law to discriminate against age. Let's be real. Right. But it happens.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Sadly, a lot of my friends and colleagues have been downsized or let go of their jobs. Usually it's because the company's going, here's a buzzword, in a new direction, getting a fresh new approach, consolidating its resources. It also means you're too old and expensive for some people, but you can't prove it. So off you go.
But then some companies now are actually, because they find all these jobs where the record number of jobs that are open and available, they can't fill because they're either being too particular or not willing to give someone a chance.
Exactly.
And then they're actually cajoling folks that initially maybe they thought, oh, we'll get rid of that payroll, bringing them back because they realize they need their skills. So I guess that's a positive in this, but I doubt it's evening out that
well, what frustrates me is the statistics show that if you're an older woman, like in her 50s, that's considered old, 50s or more, and you're looking for a job, it's going to take you a lot longer than anybody else.
Sure. Let's look at this one here, ageism across America. I thought you'd like that. Let's go with your home state of Tennessee. Now, according to that, again, ageism charges as a percent of total charges in each state. Tennessee, again, for many reasons. I don't know, maybe because they're not as technical or job creation is not as great as in other parts. But then you look at where we are in New York and certainly in Connecticut. Look at the rate there. Connecticut is 25 to 30 charges percentage, much higher than some of these other states. Why in the South would you think that there would be less ageism? I don't know. That's a
I'm
good
from
question.
the South, and they'd say they're good Christians down there. There's a great respect for family. There is a lot of spirituality in the South, a lot, as it's the Bible Belt. This is the Bible Belt. There's a lot of respect for tradition. It's interesting. There is a lot of high technology. I have to plug Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's gig society, one of the fastest internet.
North Carolina.
There are a lot of educational programs to help retrain people, which I think is really important because a lot of it is just retraining people to give them new skills to stay relevant. That's really it, to help them, have the skills. Many people who are older just don't have the skill sets because, let's face it, the computer wasn't around.
Right, and there's still a high amount of people, I would hope it's under 10%, but you wonder sometimes that is not even savvy or comfortable enough to even operate a basic desktop.
I think there's a real market for teaching computer skills and social media skills to seniors. I really do, because it will, actually they will enjoy it. My husband's aunt, Sue, rest in peace, she was real into it. She would like do computers and create websites, and I think that kept her mind very vibrant. It's a way to keep you relevant, but more importantly, mentally vibrant and connected with so many people.
And it's hard, I'll give you, for instance, I've used this before on other shows, where a 20-year-old versus a 4 or 5-year-old from a technology standpoint is already somewhat obsolete. In other words, the 4 and 5-year-olds are just like sapping in this technology so fast that forget someone my age. I'm like a dinosaur at that point. But the point is, you shouldn't let that bother you. You should just continue to forge ahead and learn what you can. And that leads me to age is just a number, where again, not to, again, hey, whether you're 8 or 80 or 68 or 58, whatever, just do the best you can and just keep the head down, eyes up a little bit, and just keep moving forward.
Well, my mom always says, my mom's 83, she's turning 80, she says, you're as old as the state of mind you want to be in. So she truly believes that your mental age and your attitude is really your best age, not necessarily your physical age, and they can be very different.
So she's not only quite an inspiration to you, but she keeps you grounded, right? I'm sure.
She keeps me in check. She keeps me in check.
There you go. There you go. That's good. Good to hear. Melanie Young joining us for the hour. Her website, melanieyoung.com, correct?
Yes.
And of course, the book, Getting Things Off My Chest, A Survivor's Guide to Staying Fearless and Fabulous in the Face of Breast Cancer, in its second edition. Now let's move on to some other points to get Melanie's take and expertise. Good carbs versus bad carbs. Again, I know, I like bread. I like things that I'm always told, oh, those are bad for you. I have friends that are, either they're vegan or they're into, what's the other now? Not organic. There's another word. I'll say again.
Paleo?
No. It's
Vegan?
a type.
Well, I don't know. There's so
It'll
many
come
terms.
to me, but anyway, the bad carbs versus good carbs. Educate me, and I'm sure, believe me, I need it as much as the next guy and gal. Give us examples of good carbs and bad carbs, because I think people don't fully understand what they need to know.
Okay, well, first we should probably eliminate good and bad. It's all food, and the bottom line is, it's really how much you eat of it that's bad. What's really bad is when you're overdoing it. So let's put that into check. You're not gonna, kill yourself eating a bad carb, but if you eat a lot of bad carbs, that's an issue. The difference, I'm gonna simplify, there's simple carbs and there's complex carbohydrates. Simple carbs, think about white bread, white rice, it doesn't have a lot of color, candy bars, it also has sugar. A lot of processed crackers, a lot of packaged foods are simple carbs. And complex carbs are whole grains. You can find a lot, whole grains is the best example. Beans, which are also high in fiber. Many plants have a lot of carbs in them. I mean, carbs are everywhere. So don't say, I can't have any carbs. You're having carbs. In something you're eating, you're having carbs. But the key is to eat whole food. This is a picture of whole grains up here. Corn has carbs, it also has sugar, but eat fresh, whole food, not processed, not overly sugared, and eat it in moderation, and balance your carbs with protein. So that's really important. A lot of people may just have a carb heavy and like a big, instead of the big plate of pasta, do like the Italians do. Have a small plate, preferably whole grain pasta.
The Italians do small plates?
They tend to do well, where I have been, yes. And my friend Tony May talks about this all the time, and he really wrote the book on authentic Italian cooking. We always have a big, here's the deal, get a big plate, look at your plate, and put 2/5 of it as vegetables, okay? Fresh vegetables. And remember, vegetables do have carbs, but fresh vegetables. I'm big on leafy greens, I'm big on color, tomatoes, squash, colors, go for colors. Then have this third handful be your lean protein. and maybe a small bowl of carbs. You know, your beans or your whole grains versus, you know, this, you know.
These two hands, not that they're big, but usually those are like left roll and right roll. I haven't even gotten to the the pasta dish yet.
Yeah, and you know, when you dine out in restaurants, and a lot of the bread's really good, it's hard. But skip the bread. First of all, it, you know, fusses up with your appetite. And even, you know, when you're in Italy, you have to beg for bread. They don't even let you have bread. You have to pay for bread. But just forget the bread. It's not that bread is bad, but we eat too much. We eat too much of it. And it can really play around with your glycemic factor and increase your, you know, your insulin resistance if you go overboard.
But the key amongst all of this is, again, portions. Again, you know, they always bring up stats how in the 40s, 50s, even beyond that, 60s, when I was a kid growing up, you know, they claimed that, you know, we didn't eat as much. Again, I guess it's hard for a kid because it's kind of like looking at a building. I went to school there 40 years ago. Then you say, oh my God, it doesn't look as big as I remember it. So a kid's impression might be a little off, but an adult, they claim ate less. And yet, I don't know, I think the obesity rate and the diabetic rate and everything. We'll talk a little bit more about diabetes later, but it seems like we can't get it under control no matter what we try to do in this country. I can't speak for the rest of the world.
Well, there's a big reason for that. I mean, first of all, carbs is more than bread. There's two issues. There's gluten and there's carbs.
That's the word I was not gluten.
And gluten.
That's it.
A lot of people don't eat gluten because they're trying to lose weight. Yes, if you stop eating a lot of carbs, you will lose weight. I mean, you're probably eating less of what you're eating. But most people you're either gluten insensitive, some people are gluten sensitive and it causes gastric issues, or gluten intolerant. But the real people who really cannot have any gluten have celiac disease, which is a condition. Otherwise, you know, to be like, I don't do gluten because, you know, I want to lose weight, you're probably going to compensate somewhere else. So you may not be losing weight. That's
the word I couldn't think of, is gluten.
Gluten-free.
Again, I have some dear friends.
It's a big trend right now.
Everything gluten, gluten, gluten. Even the other day I was at an outlet, and all of a sudden their food court, and of course, you know, gluten this and gluten free. You know, obviously it's like, you know, and I think that's one of the words that is very not misunderstood, it's not understood at all. People don't understand what it means with regards to what they're eating or not eating. But that's fine.
Well, and like I said, celiac disease is you know, people who have celiac disease cannot tolerate any gluten. There are people who are gluten sensitive. I'm a bit gluten sensitive. I bloat. I have, you know, my own gastrointestinal issues. I limit and monitor it. But again, I find pairing the food really makes a difference. If I have a good solid salad, leafy greens, with a carb and lean protein, that's a balanced meal. I feel great the next day. I have no issues.
I've seen some of the images of stuff that either you've made, or most of it you've made, because I don't think the chefs would be too great if you and David taking shots of their meals. But I mean, it's just, you know, I see a cookbook in your future. I mean, you're really a healthy cookbook. I mean, they're just, you know.
I'd love to, with the right registered dietitian to help me. It'd be great.
Now, our next topic, drinking wine, which you touched on earlier, and the possible risk for cancer. Again, I like a glass of wine like the next person, and then both, and I think this impacts women and men. All of a sudden, it just, you're always, you know, that you're always hearing about these, the cancer. You even had something recently on your Facebook page, Melanie Young, Fearless, Fabulous You page on Facebook that talked about, again, the link between cancer. And I mean, I know you love wine as much as the next person.
Well, I do, and Dave and I host a radio show where we interview vintners, and we both write about wine, and it's been in our blood for years, but both our fathers got us into the business. First of all, food does not cause cancer. You know, there are other conditions that cause cancer, and there's a long list. Lifestyle habits cause or can increase your risk. I think it's like 80 to 90% of all cancers are related to lifestyle. Lifestyle, and the lifestyle is more than eating. So I want to be very clear about that. The other 10% are genetic. Wine has many health benefits, especially red wine. It has something called, I'm going to hopefully pronounce it right, resveratrol. I think I got it right. I call it preservatrol, the preserve shape. It's resveratrol. And it is found in red wine, and it can, a daily glass for women, men can have 2. Those are the guidelines based on 6 ounces, 1 glass a day for women, 2 for men, can actually help you with monitoring your cholesterol. It can actually help you with reducing your risk for Alzheimer's. There are some very good heart health benefits. The downside is studies have shown that women who regularly consume more than a daily glass of wine a day, and some studies say a day, your daily glass, do increase their risk for breast cancer. Sad but true, there is a direct link between alcohol consumption in women and breast cancer. I keep looking for other studies that refute that, but
now alcohol referring just to wine, or what if someone, I said to you,
alcohol.
We'll say alcohol in general, because I was going to say down in the Bible Belt. I mean, they may be Bible Belters, we'll call that word, but they certainly like their brandy, their bourbon, their scotch, their whiskey. Too much of that, I would think, would also be not healthy as well.
I want to be very clear. It's alcohol consumption. Okay. However, wine consumption does have heart health benefits, brain boosting benefits, and other benefits that is not in what we call alcohol. Now, there may be other studies about scotch that I don't know about, but I focus on wine because that's really my love. Again, moderation, as with everything, is key. Women do need to be more vigilant about their overall alcohol consumption. Another reason, Larry, is that it makes you gain weight. And the bigger issue is that moderate weight gain in all women is a significant health risk, not just for cancer, but also for heart health. A new study just came out. I have Dr. Nisa Goldberg on my radio show, I think in a week or two, to talk about it. Moderate weight gain, not obesity, moderate weight gain will impact your health. It's heart health, it's potential for diabetes, we're going to talk about that, cancers, different cancers, so that's the key. So how do you deal with that? You eat better and you move more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Melanie Young joining us for the hour here on Studio 411, melanieyoung.com for more information. To mention for me now past episodes of your show, Fearless, Fabulous You, because you have some great guests. Where you have like a YouTube channel, correct? Or somewhere where they
wish I had a YouTube
can see
channel.
Past episodes?
Yeah, you can listen. We're working on the C part. All my shows are on iHeart.com. And the free iHeart app, you can you can click Fearless, Fabulous You, episodes, get to the link, and if you hit episodes, you can scroll down and read about each episode and who the guest is and what the topic is.
Great, yeah, because again, I always get a kick when I see on your Facebook page the the great people that you have on from all walks, all walks of life. That talking about the subject matter is always great. Now, speaking of subjects, let's move on to this one. The image caught me, and I said, I might like to try this. It was actually a recipe attached to this. Turmeric as an anti-inflammatory superstar, and this is East Curry lime roasted cashews. Now, I know as soon as people hear curry, they start freaking out because they think it's like, get the fire extinguisher out or a big glass of water. Now, just touch on turmeric in general, but did you try this? I think you had a guest on.
I have actually. Yeah. It's turmeric. Turmeric, okay. It's a root. It's part of the ginger root family. And I feel very happy for the farmers in Hawaii that farm turmeric because they're making a lot of money now that it's been rediscovered. It's an Asian root known for it's yellow. It's curcumin makes it yellow, and it's known for its antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer properties. It has been turmeric has been attributed to helping reducing your risk for colorectal cancer and other kinds of cancers, but most notably colorectal. It has a very light yellow due to the curcumin. If you cook with it, we often use it with curry. It's got a very mild flavor. We like to add its complementary seasonings such as curry and ginger. And the best health benefits combine it with black pepper. You can take it as a supplement, but like with all supplements, you should consult with your medical practitioner because many supplements do interact with medications, and turmeric does interact with some.
Gotcha. See, I was mispronouncing it. Now I know why Simon and Garfunkel didn't use it in their songs. See, there went rosemary, thyme, whatever.
Turmeric.
They couldn't work that in the lyrics.
Some people use it in cosmetics too, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, cinnamon and turmeric. I actually tried it because some famous actress said she used it to make her skin glow. It did not work for me because I'm pale. It's really better for olive skin. I was a little yellow.
Okay, so it has a glistening effect, eh?
Yeah, well, it gives you like a tan.
Nice.
I actually like to mix it up and create savory Greek yogurts with it.
Really? Boy.
And I also mix it with my almond milk and make a turmeric, they call it turmeric tea. You can put it in tea. I use it in almond milk at night. It's so yummy with a little cinnamon.
I'm getting hungry just hearing this. This is why we're going to have her back on. We talked about having a wine tasting episode. I would love, because we had a guest on a couple of years ago that brought some healthy food choices. And
This is a healthy food
I was
choice.
just getting, I could feel myself just, not putting on the calories because it was all healthy, but my goodness, I could just feel myself like, who needs dinner after this? But yeah, they're very healthy indeed. Our next
They say
topic.
eat the rainbow. Basically, eat the rainbow.
Fruits and vegetables, as we started to talk about store-bought, organic, and farmers. And I've heard some things about organic that some people are kind of anti that or against. They think there's some problems with it. Educate us a little if you can.
The pros and cons. Organic is not sprayed with pesticides, right, and herbicides, which we don't want, and could be potentially, if you hear Gloria Steinem speak, they are carcinogenic. But who wants herbicides in your bloodstream? Period. The downside is because they're not sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, you get little critters inside of them, so you got to be really clean them a lot, right? And they don't tend to stay as fresh. But for many, fresh, there's nothing. We're growing tomatoes and peppers on our patio. There's nothing like a fresh grown tomato, lettuce, or pepper. Where we live in the country in the Hudson Valley, everybody seems to have a farm or a vegetable garden. We don't, but we're working on it with tomatoes and peppers.
My director just tells me organic is very expensive. So
yes, it is expensive, and that's the other downside is many people cannot afford to eat organic. So here's the rule of thumb: if you can eat organic, do it. I'm going to give you a tip in a minute. Otherwise, go fresh. Many supermarkets have wonderful fresh vegetable departments. Ours does, and even has local. If you need to go fresh frozen, which is actually when the vegetables are frozen at their peak and they're very healthy. Just trying to avoid canned or fried or boxed or fried, basically. So that's the way to do it. And then when you prepare your vegetables, stay away from heavy creams and don't make them too cheesy because that adds the fat.
Yeah, and we love our cheese in this country.
So I have here something called the Environmental Working Group's 2017 Dirty Dozen list. You can get it at www.ewg.org. It's issued every year, and it's the top fruits and veggies that have the most pesticides. So there's also something called the Clean 15, which are the fruits and vegetables with the least pesticides. So this is a handy sheet to have when you go grocery shopping.
Okay, so fill us in a little bit on it.
I will do so. Are you ready? The top fruits and veggies that have the most pesticides. Number one, strawberries. Did you know that?
No.
Spinach.
I'm getting distasteful just looking at them right here.
Hopefully those are organic.
At $3 a pound, might I add.
Spinach, and a lot of people are not high on the bag spinach. They feel we eat a lot of bag spinach, but a lot of people say get it fresh. There's a lot of mixed opinions
I always
on
get
that.
worried that one that I saw online where there was a frog in the bag.
Or fecal matter.
Freddie the frog got scooped up when they bagged it.
Ooh. Nectarines.
Very good.
Apples, peaches, pears, cherries, grapes, celery, tomatoes, sweet bell peppers, potatoes. Those are the Dirty Dozen. Try to buy them organic when possible. More than 98% of samples of strawberries, spinach, peaches, nectarines, cherries, and apples tested positive for residue of at least one pesticide.
Wow. Now, one of my not so favorite, although I will say I had one recently in a quiche, kale. Do not like kale, but you know what? I saw the other day where a smoothie made with kale.
Yeah, we like it in smoothies. You know, the thing is, whenever we make kale, we've tried it in salads, chiffonaded, we've sauteed it. We always feel like cows. We're just chewing and chewing. Some of this kale, we're like chewing and chewing and chewing. And then we look at each other after we make this kale salad. I like to add in strawberries, farm strawberries.
Yes, yeah.
Pesticide-free strawberries, and nuts, and anything to actually make us forget that we're eating the kale. But in a smoothie or a juice, and we did try juicing, it's really good. And also, we make, or David, give him credit, makes like a Tuscan stew in the winter, and we cook in mushrooms and kale and beans. We just cook it all down in vegetable broth or mushroom broth, and that's really good.
I see a lot of course, you're out in the countryside, more rural than the city, and of course, as you said, you're growing, you know, a decent amount of things that you have room for or ability to do. But I find that, you know, and sometimes people knock it. They say, well, you know, it's kind of like not becoming the neighborhood. I'm like, what? You know, cities like even my old hometown in Bridgeport, I'm sure Hartford, I've seen it done. A lot of the big cities, you know, they've got their little backyards with their fresh grown stuff, which
all
reminds me of like
are.
even in London during the war years. I'm sure they still do it now. These little you know, homes, whatever, little flats as they call them, and then they always had vegetable gardens, you know.
I think it's great. You know, I also think if you have children, if you're a grandparent and you bring your grandchildren over, they can learn about vegetables. If you're a parent, you can do it. It's a great family thing to create a garden, and it's really not too difficult. You know, start small. I mean, we started, like I said, we have peppers and tomatoes. We keep looking at a patch of earth below our patio, thinking maybe next year we'll do lettuces. It's a lot of work, though. You gotta make sure it's watered.
I was up in upstate New York recently, and it was amazing the difference a little bit in climate. But you could tell where you know, someone made the comment that their peak growing season, instead of maybe July, August, is more August, September, because it's, you know, close to where we were was close to the Canadian border. And you could tell there was a difference. Things weren't as far along as perhaps we are here.
Well, when I go to the south, to Tennessee, you know, the peaches have been around, and okra, and I mean, it's just like, you know, an abundance of vegetables. I mean, we're just starting to get them up in the Hudson Valley, and we got our first newsletter from one of our local farm stands that the sweet corn's finally in.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and tomatoes are just coming in.
Melanie Young joining us for these remaining moments here on Studio 411, the book in its second edition, Getting Things Off My Chest, A Survivor's Guide to Staying Fearless and Fabulous in the Face of Breast Cancer. Let's talk about a little bit, we touched on it earlier, dealing with diabetes. It seems to me that the diabetes problem, I don't feel that we're getting a handle on it. Sometimes I think it's getting worse than better. Again, obviously, I preface this by saying Melanie's not a physician, she's not a medical MD, but of course, you know, with the people that she comes in contact with, as well as her own research, you know, I certainly value her thoughts on anything to do with health and nutrition. So again, dealing with diabetes, give me some thoughts.
Well, I have worked with many doctors who specialize in diabetes, and many authors who've written cookbooks for diabetics. There's type 1 diabetes and there's type 2. You're usually born with type 1 diabetes, so that's a whole other type of diabetes to address. So the one I want to address is type 2 diabetes, which is the one you're referring to that seems to be on the increase. And one of the big reasons for that is the obesity epidemic. And obesity in America is an epidemic. Too many Americans and way too many children are overweight. And the biggest reason for that is, 1, diet, 2, lack of exercise. We're too sedentary. And those go hand in hand, because you can eat a healthy diet, but if you're not moving, you can still gain weight. So that's what the problem is and fortunately, there are many nonprofits and education programs, including former First Lady Michelle Obama's program, to get kids, to teach children to eat better and to move more. Because sometimes your school meal is the only meal a child has if they're coming from a broken home or you know, a home where they don't have parents who are cooking. That may be their only meal. So there's a lot of programs. One of my favorite in the New York area is Wellness in the Schools. I'm interviewing Chef Bill Telepan about his work with kids. Chef Bill Yossis, who worked at the White House with the Obamas and the Clintons, has a program. The more we can educate children and adults about why it's important to eat healthy and move, the better we will at reducing the situation we have right now with type 2 diabetes in America.
And I think, too, another piece of the pie is also, no pun intended, is that I think the younger generations, for many reasons, technology being one of them, are less active.
Right.
When we were a kid, I just heard something the other day where there was a study that said, kid getting a little dirt, is not the unhealthy thing. The immune systems are, the things I hear, and you and I think have talked about this in past appearances, that, allergic to this, allergic to that. It's like, where was all this stuff when I was 8 years old, 10 years old, 13 years old? If it was there, it wasn't publicized, and it just amazes me. But certainly when you mentioned sedentary, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, they get out there and ride a bike, get out there and play ball. It's not this old.
Well, I think it's going to get worse because I see toddlers where they're just pointing all the time. They don't even do this. They just do this.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be raising, a bunch of people going like this all the time.
Soon it'll be voice commands.
With no communication skills. I mean, just wait till we see the lack of communication skills happening.
I see that every day. And I hear now that as long as we're on that topic, swinging back to finally cursive writing, because we got away from that. And then I dealt with someone who was I worked with a couple of years ago, lovely young man, but probably about 28, 29. So he must have been during that first wave, and he'd leave me some instructions or something that had to be corrected or done, and I'm like, corrected? I can't read what you're writing.
Well, my handwriting is definitely worse too. I think it all gets worse.
But I think as even us that did cursive, if you don't use it as much, like when I write an occasional check or a note or something, handwriting, I find myself almost out of practice is the best word. So, and I think I've forgotten how to write a capital Z, so that's something I've got to work
I think everybody needs to sit down and write themselves a letter.
Exactly.
Start with writing yourself a letter.
Just like the old song.
Right.
Now, this is not me waiting for a concert venue. This is a little graphic dealing with incontinence, and certainly a sensitive topic. But Melanie has some exercises that I'm really curious about, so that if I ever get to this point, I won't necessarily have to start using a Depend or any other kind of device. So,
well, you probably will, because most people become incontinent as they age.
No
That's
matter
the reality.
So there's nothing I can eat.
It is a natural process in aging. You start in diapers, you end in diapers, many of us. The reality is, and my show, Fearless, Fabulous You, covers head to toe, inside and out health. So recently I had a show on incontinence. Women do tend to have incontinence more than men. Some of it's due to pregnancy, which increases your risk for having incontinence, obesity, and smoking, because you're coughing a lot, and your muscles get released. So many of us have incontinence or a bladder that's out of control. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but there are exercises you can do. I can do them right now if you want.
That's why I brought it up, because I read something where you can be sitting on a plane or in your car, preferably with the two hands on the wheel. But
you don't need your hands to do these exercises. They're called the Kegel exercises. They're also the same exercises that you do to improve your interior vaginal muscles or your prostate muscle, that it's the resisting the urge to go. You hold.
So these are exercises that both it's not gender specific. Both can do.
Yeah, I mean they talk about them more with women, because women probably need them more, but men experience incontinence, particularly men that have who have enlarged prostates, which is a very common condition. With my father had prostate cancer. He was in Depends at the end of his life. It happens. First of all, be sensitive to people who need to go to the bathroom. Be courteous and don't rush people and guests. Ask people if they need to go to the bathroom. Most people do, and they're embarrassed. And if you have a condition, be prepared. But you can do these exercises which do help strengthen the area.
So this is something I could even do if I had a show that wasn't going well. Not this one, but I'm saying a guest that really wasn't thrilling me. I could actually do these and just pretend like I'm interested in what they're saying. Okay, no, but not you, Melanie.
Well, the doctor I had on said to do it at a stoplight, or I said, what about a subway? So it's just a healthy exercise. It's also one to strengthen your muscles as you age, so that you do not. That area, just like all muscles need to be exercise, stay strong.
There you go. There you go. I love this picture. Anyone now?
too.
Do you
It
have
seems like
these
it's been
planted?
fixed.
I know. Does it look great on screen here? Look at that. The sunflowers. You have sunflowers on your property?
Well, first of all, I must credit the photographer who did some really great photoshopping. His name is Michael Gold. He does portrait photography. He's a neighbor in New Paltz, and this was actually taken at Walk Hill Valley Farm, one of our local family farms. Just down the road, we love Jenkin Lukens is down. They're all down the road in yonder, and they probably about mid to late August. Right now, it's cornfields coming up, corn season, and then the sunflowers will burst into in September.
There you go. One thing I wanted to get to, if we had time, a recent thing you had talked about and had on your blog and your Facebook page, which is something I can relate to because I'm always telling people about it. It was an article on savings. Do you know the one I'm talking about? You know, because people sometimes, you know, they think, oh, you know, I had a guy one time, well, why bother picking that penny or dime up? Oh,
I'll pick them all up.
Yeah, I do too. And, you know, if the faces are up, that's great too. But it was just, you know, I just think that, you know, we need to focus. It's a mindset as far as, and believe me, I'm not Rockefeller in terms of wealth. B, probably in as much debt as the next guy. But the point is, it's a road much traveled. You have to always keep moving forward and trying to make those things pare down. Have a strategy. You know, I've had people say to me very complimentary, oh, you should be a financial planner. Well, I don't know about that, but simple things for people to do, whether it's picking up a dime or a penny. God help me, if you find a 20, that's even better, but I don't think that's happening much. But just, you know, I think that we are, as a society, I think we're very ignorant as far as ways to save for your future, because if you don't, no one else is going to do it for you.
Well, we're busy swiping. We're a swiping society. You know, because we can swipe and pay, it makes those temptations a lot easier. And I can't resist often. I've always been a spender. I've had to train myself to be a saver. We take all the loose change that's in the bottom of pockets and pocketbooks and the car and you name it, and we throw it just like this in jars.
Absolutely.
And then we drag that jar to the Coinstar, and we started a bank account with all those coins.
We call that like a travel fund. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
we do too.
In other words, like someone said to me, well, yeah, I'll be dead before, you know, we get to that. I said, well, you have something to shoot for. I mean, my point is, it's a mindset, maybe not so much for that goal, but in order to other things that have to do with financial.
Well, I'm a big fan of a newsletter called The Penny Hoarder. You're probably referring, because I just reposted some things for there on how to get passive income. I'm a big fan, and I also like, I think LearnVest is one. There are a few others, but I read them regularly. I get great tips out of them, and share the tips. Love to share, pass it on, or as I say, pay it forward.
Pay it forward, and also from, you know, again, from in investing, I certainly don't profess to be a good investor, but I mean, I know here in this state, they've got a thing where they're trying to initiate, especially for people who work in small businesses, whatever, to have like kind of a state 401k, obviously where the state may not kick in, but in other words, you're putting aside, whether it's 1% and people say, oh, I can't do that. I know in my dealings, people that with companies that do 401ks rather, that say, oh, I can't afford the 3% or the 4%. Well, not to sound like, you know, the old rhetoric, but you're leaving free money on the table.
Right.
Because if someone's matching something, that means tightening the belt and having mac and cheese once a week, well, then, you know, you're going to try to do it. And again, not preaching. I know it's hard, but...
it is hard, but it's simple things, like instead of going out for coffee, make your own coffee. Instead of going out for lunch every day, bring your lunch in.
That's coffee, that's a big one. That's a few $100s at the end of the year, for sure.
Yeah, and it's one thing to do is trade out. Instead of doing this one thing you spend on every day, do one thing at home and put that money aside. You got to remember to put the money aside, though, and not spending on something else.
See, we have to have Melanie here more in studio. I don't know why, but it's just like, you know, we got everything in.
Wow.
I can go to sleep tonight knowing that I covered everything I wanted to cover, but we'll take her any way we can, whether it's phone, satellite, whatever. Melanie Young, great to have you with us as always. There she is holding her books, Fearless, Fabulous You, Lessons in Living Life on Your Terms, and the most recent one on its second edition, Getting Things Off My Chest, a Survivor's Guide guide, staying fearless and fabulous in the face of breast cancer. Again, for more information, all that Melanie's doing, www.melanieyoung.com. That'll fill you in on everything that she's up to, and I can't thank you enough to make the trek to come down and visit us.
Oh, I'm so glad I came. After how many years have we been corresponding?
About 3 years. About 3 years. Yeah.
Let's don't make it that long again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything with wine, we're definitely going to work on that, and also the healthy foods. We've already got shows planned that we haven't even done yet. There's Melanie exercise. There's we were going to use that chair, but we couldn't rent it, so we had to go with the standard one. Anyway, thank you, Melanie, and we thank you for joining us here on this episode of Studio 411. Larry Dasilva, your host, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.